Yeah, I'll start easy. First. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Okay.
I'm here at home in my apartment in Copenhagen and now having some coffee.
That's good. And now, I don't know how long you've been living in Copenhagen, and I know you lived in some other places as well, but you grew up, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but Sidrugota?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you grew up in a very small town, maybe 400 or 500 people, I think. Now you live in Copenhagen. I think there's a song on the record, This City, that kind of shows that juxtaposition. But what was it like growing up in such a secluded place?
I think it is. There are many things to say about that, both, good and strange things. I think when you grow up in a small place like that, you're quite far away, maybe from the rest of the world. And I remember when I was growing up as a little girl, I would, dream away a lot. I would go for long walks and just be in the middle of nature. And somehow there's a lot of space for the imagination.
Sure.
Because there is just a lot of open space. And I think that's one of the things that really triggered the artist in me somehow, like the longing to express myself through music. And, growing up in a place like that is also quite isolated, like locally,
Sure.
Everyone knows each other and but it definitely is a very big part of me coming from that place, and somehow I carry it with me in my music. It finds its way into my music somehow.
Sure, and like you kind of alluded to, when you grow up in such an environment, is it kind of natural that you go more inward almost, and then kind of explore that creativity inside yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think for many artists, it is like that, and you get very inspired by the surroundings, and it kind of affects your inner landscape or something, your inner world a lot. The mood, there's a certain melancholy also in a place like that, because it is very dark in the winter. And very bright in the summer, so you have this very super strong contrast,
right? Which
is filled with darkness, but also some sort of light and hope, kind of. It is.
It's interesting, because then you get kind of that yin and yang of the world, the dark and the light, the kind of the good times and the bad times. It's very.
Yeah. Yes, kind of, and the winters can be super strong, and where you feel like nature is very strong and powerful, and you are just a little fragile being in this world. I think it makes you feel a lot of emotions because you're kind of close to nature. And I think that has affected my music a lot. Like it's become like my musical way of expressing myself. The strong contrasts of music. Yeah.
One thing I find interesting, and I believe you mentioned this either in the bio or somewhere else, but you say about nature and the environment that you hear a lot of electronics in it, or that there's a certain sense of, because that's kind of, I don't think a lot of people see it that way. Nature seems something very different than all the technology and everything we have. So what is the connection with you? I can imagine thunder and kind of that. But what is the connection between electronic music and the environment for you?
Yeah, I think it is. There is a certain electricity, in weather and in all these sounds that you find in nature, especially rough nature. And I don't know. I guess it's just also a certain kind of imagination in my head. But I often hear it as a very electronic thing, and I always found it very fascinating to combine very organic elements like. Just a pure voice together with something that is more electronically controlled, because there you get, again, contrasts.
Sure.
And I don't know, I think nature just has a certain rhythm, a heartbeat that you also find in a steady electronic track. I think you can hear these things in nature as well.
And so I'm going to skip over kind of a lot of the music that you've made before, because I want to focus on this record. But when you've always been quite a diverse artist. You've tried out all kinds of things, and your music has appeared in all kinds of things. When you start then on an album process like this one, do you have a kind of an idea of where you want it to go, or is it like do you kind of have to feel it out first, see what kind of mindset you are?
I think that usually for my albums, and especially for this one, I have a vision before I start creating it. And the first phase of the creating the album is often just a brainstorm on where I wanted to go creatively. And I think that for me, it's been very much like a journey, because, like you say, I've been a very curious artist, if I can say it like that. I've done a lot of different projects, and I like to challenge myself with different projects. But and every album I've made has kind of been a step further in the process of just being on this journey as an artist and creative spirit, I guess. And this album is just, I guess, somehow a statement of where I am creatively at the moment. Is that my phone calling?
I don't hear a phone.
Okay, I think somebody's calling me. Just
I don't hear anything.
I just shut down. It was a messenger. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, well, I can go continue on that, because it kind of overlaps partly with what you talk about on the album, which is change and kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone. So throughout your musical career, was that kind of the motivation to challenge yourself and to see what else you can do, or is it just pure curiosity?
No, I think it is what you're saying there. Like there's something about when you are creating, you're in a way you're digging, you're digging for something that you of course you don't know what it is, but your unconsciousness seems to know what it's looking for, and you just try and find it. And I think it's like that for every song I write. Like I always feel like I'm looking for something. And that's where the creative force of creating my songs is coming from. But I think it is a mixture of curiosity and also a way of growing as an artist, to kind of try and step out of your comfort zone and try and maybe learn something new about yourself and about your limits and your capability of expressing yourself, I guess, and in different ways.
In terms of your especially your vocals, then what have you learned or discovered through the album process of Segl? Is that how you pronounce it? It's translated.
Yes.
It's translated into Segl. But have you discovered something, because I think you've studied jazz and classical singing. So is there anything in this process that you kind of discovered about yourself, or discovered about where you want your singing to go?
It often takes me a long time to figure out. I think I would know probably in a few years.
Right. Fair enough.
I think you ask me again in 2 years what I learned from this process. But I can say that with this album, it's definitely been my longest creative process ever.
Right.
And it's been like that for various reasons, I think. Because I have been going through a lot of changes in both my career and also in many ways, and that really affected the process of the album, both the songwriting and the themes of the songs, but also the way I created the music. And I've done a lot of collaborations on this album, more than ever, and I think that made it slower for me because. When you collaborate with many people, you kind of have to, or for me, it's like that. I take longer in like processing it, and so I've taken myself a lot of freedom to kind of change my mind on things. And no, I'm gonna take all the drums out again, and this song is just gonna be piano and vocals. Like a few songs on the album had quite a lot of different productions before I found the right one.
And you mentioned doing collaboration, so let's jump into that quickly, because Ásgeir is on the album.
Yes.
Einar from Varduna is on the album. Your husband, I think he helped with the record. What allowed you to open yourself up to kind of these other influences instead of kind of keeping it in your own mind or keeping your own within your own control?
I think some albums that I've done, I've really much wanted to keep it in my own control. I don't know what I've been afraid of, but it's like you think you're afraid of losing your grip or your plot or something. But for this album, I discovered one thing is that when you do open yourself up to collaborations and when you create with somebody else, it really can open up new dimensions, especially if it's the right fit. If it's the wrong fit, it can be very tiring and energy draining. And I've had both those things in the process of making this album. And at the same time, as it's been difficult at times where I felt stuck and, oh shit, I don't know where it goes from here. I've also had times where I felt like new dimensions would open and I tried things that I've never tried before. So, and that's extremely exciting when you are creating, I think,
Can you give
that whoa moment.
Sure. Yeah. Can you give an example of something like that? Something that you've tried on this record that you perhaps wouldn't have tried in the past?
Yeah, I think, like, for example, the track that Ásgeir is singing on, it was like a done production, and I had sung that verse myself, and I was really happy with it. This sounds great. And then it struck my mind one day, like, oh my God, but imagine if Ásgeir would sing this verse. Yeah, I think that would be even better. And then I asked him whether he was up for it. And I sent him the song, and he immediately did some beautiful vocals on it and did some harmonies, which I would never have thought of doing. For me, the track was like, it was done. And then he added this extra thing to it, which I would never have thought of. And it just took it to another level for me. And, things like that kind of, when you allow yourself to just be surprised. And I think that's a great thing. Beautiful collaborations is very precious.
But I think in terms of those kind of opening yourself up for those moments, there's a difference between wanting change but being ready for change. And I think you captured this in the song No, it's either Let It Come or Sleep On It.
I think it's Let It Come.
Yeah, Let It Come, I think. Because, yeah, exactly. Because there's a line, Let It Come, bring it on. It's kind of, you're ready for it. It's time. There's something in the air. So you kind of feel like something's bubbling up. So what's that for you what change in your life happened that you were ready for these things?
Yeah, I think that these songs, and especially a song like Let It Come, is very inspired by both my personal experience, like the inner world that I live in, but also the outside world, like the whole world, everything. The world is going through a lot of change.
Sure.
And people need to get ready for it, or somehow adjust to new ways of living, new ways of doing things. And I think that was also a big inspiration for this song. So it's kind of a double meaning in it. It's both like this personal thing where you, this time I'm going to be ready for this, I'm not going to like hide away from change, which can be terrifying. And it's also like inspired by just what's going on in the world.
And then if we go into Sleep On It, which to me sounds like a continuation of that idea, is that when you are ready for change, then you shouldn't be afraid that it won't happen overnight, or there's room to fill. There's always time to fix things, or there's always,
exactly, yeah.
Is that more of a broader perspective on society then as well, where even though we need some change in terms of environment, in terms of how we treat each other, all those things, we also have to be wary of not wanting. No, that's not right. But we have to be careful. We have to be willing to make some mistakes as we do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because nobody gets it right straight away, and there has to be a space for lots of mistake before you kind of maybe make the right decisions or make the right move. And it takes time to kind of become the best version of yourself, I guess, or something like that. And there are always so many big decisions that have to be made, both personally and also all around you. And there's so much information everywhere. There's so much information on the internet. And which voices should you listen to, right? So it's also very much about listening to your inner voice, and because deep inside what's right.
And that's interesting then as well, because if you look at a song like This City, and we kind of discuss the big city and where you grew up in the beginning, does it help going back home, for instance, and kind of clear your mind and get away from all that information that you're being bombarded with? Well, these days we have internet, so it kind of follows you around.
Yes, that's the thing. I think I've always felt like I have one foot on that side and another foot like in the city life where everything's noisy and stuff like that. And funny enough, I really feel like I need a little bit of both in my life because sometimes it can also get too quiet.
Sure.
And the funny thing, when I moved away from the Faroe Islands when I was 17, for the first time in my life, I noticed that how much I missed like the sound of the ocean, and it was just something that I hadn't even noticed. It was just there, but when I moved away from it, I started to really appreciate the silence and everything that the Faroe Islands hold, kind of. And I noticed also how much like it's a part of my mind somehow.
Sure.
And whenever I would write a song, I would travel there somehow in my mind. But I didn't notice until I moved away from it. And I think it's the same with the city. If I stay there for a very long time in the Faroe Islands where I grew up, I start missing the fuzz of the city, because that can also be very inspiring. I guess it's always those contrasts again that I feel support each other. Like a noisy city can also make you like dream away.
Sure.
In the noise.
the white noise in the background, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that something that you try to replicate in the music as well? Those dynamics and those shifts between loud and then soft and kind of raw and clean and all that stuff?
I think so. And I think in a city, you asked me how I hear the electronics in the music, like in the nature, but maybe you also find that contrast in a city where you hear all these different sounds and noises from cars and police cars and people chatting everywhere. And it's kind of that combination that goes together with another part of me, which is very, very much just nature and space and silence, or like just, it's like where those two worlds meet, I guess. Yeah. I forgot the question.
No, that's fine. When you, I don't know, like you say, this is perhaps the longest process you took for an album. What kind of mood were you in as you were writing these songs then? What kind of, atmosphere were they written in?
I think the first song I wrote for the album was Sleep on It.
Okay.
And I wrote that song 4 years ago, actually, and that was the first song, and that song is very much about, like we just talked about, like making choices and how do you make the right choice, and is there even a right choice? Maybe you have to make the wrong one a few times before you make the right one, and I think that kind of that kind of state of mind led me further into all these other songs, which are about either being tired of the noise of a big city and longing to go back to where you come from somehow, just finding the way back to where it all started, find your passion again or something like that. And yeah, I think the themes reflect very much on like the inner emotions, like quite human things,
sure.
Existential questions, the big questions in life. At the same time as the themes are very inspired by the state of the world, I guess.
I have to try, because I'm not sure if it is, but with Sleep on It, were you thinking when you wrote that about a particular decision you had in front of you then?
I think there were quite a few. I was like, I found myself at the crossroads in many ways in my life at that time.
Okay.
And I had a hard time making the decisions that I was supposed to make. So, but then when you have made a decision and then you think about it for months, and then when you finally just make the decision, it's such a relief, So I guess that's what that song is.
Well, but maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I think around that time, 4 years ago, so that must be around 2016, around that time.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say, maybe it was even before, I think it was even before, it was maybe 2015, 2014, but you started to get some international recognition, and did that play a role in kind of how you saw yourself and what you wanted to do in music and maybe in your personal life?
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it, because also for example, I changed my management like 4 times within 2 years, and there was just a lot of things like that happened all the time, and I thought those were really hard decisions to make and difficult to figure out what is the right thing for you to do, both as an artist and then it all goes hand in hand also, because you also have to be a happy human being in order for everything to kind of work for you. So it was just, I think that was in many ways also the reason, like a crossroad, both also creatively and also personally in my career.
Because I can imagine, sorry, go ahead.
No, and the songs kind of just came out of me like that.
Because one thing I can imagine with the type of music that you've made over the years, and like we talked about the diversity, there's always a desire to evolve, but also you don't want to lose your own identity in a sense.
No, exactly, yeah.
So go ahead.
No, but I think that for me it's also been super important as an artist to take the freedom to create what I feel I need to create and write the songs that I feel that I have on my mind, and not try to hang on to something that was successful in the past, and because then you kind of fade within, I think, creatively. You have to do what is right for you creatively. And I think with this album, I found a creative place that is, like you said in the beginning of our call, it is very much my background is with me and on this album, but there's also something new that I have never explored before. Some new sounds and some new ways of making music. So I think that was also, it took me a while to find a way into that. Yeah.
Is this where the album title comes from then? Because you mentioned the word journey earlier on. And so is this kind of that journey of sailing, kind of the musical
Definitely,
journey?
Yes. The title came to me very late in the process. And because I thought, what is this album? Because I had written like 40 songs or something and had super hard time figuring out what the fuck, 40 songs.
And you have to bring it down to 12, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, what is this? So I had to figure out what was the essence of this, and then I filtered it down to these 12 songs, and then it was all clear to me that this was an album about a journey, both personal and creative journey, and it's like sailing on an ocean, and you're not entirely sure where you're going, but you have a feeling where you want to go, and you can like set your sail, but you can't control like the wind that's blowing into your sail. So you just have to trust that whatever's happening is the right thing for you. So that's why I chose that title, because I thought it could like embrace the whole album. And then I also wrote an extra song, which is the first opening song for the album.
And that's I wrote down Moonsail as a kind of a translation. So can you explain kind of how that song then developed from that idea?
Because I found the title, and that's kind of unusual, but I figured out what the title should be. And after I figured that out, I was like, because I had 11 songs that I had chosen. Then I was like, damn, I have to write another song. And I wrote that song very late in the process. Because I felt that was the opening song that had been missing to kind of open up to this journey, which then goes further into the Let It Come song. And so it's like the journey was complete when I had written Moonsail, which is a metaphoric poem about, sailing on this ocean, and your sail is filled with hope.
Well, that word that you just mentioned, hope, is a very interesting one, because it sounded to me at least like a very hopeful record, even though you're moving towards this uncertainty and not knowing what life will bring you. There was hope in it, in a sense. So was that important to stress?
Well, that's great to hear. Yes, definitely, because I think that it's important to keep hope, to keep your hope up, although you're going through like dark times and the world is going through a dark time. We need hope more than ever. And also, this album is maybe a little bit dark in some places, quite like dark, but and when you make like a dark pop music, I think it's important to add some sprinkles of hope to it as well, to keep the balance,
Well, yeah, that's because it doesn't sound like you're right. There's some dark elements, and you do ask those very difficult questions about life. But there's always, like I said, a certain glimmer of hope. It's not like, okay, we're fucked.
We're fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I think for me it's important to kind of balance that out. Also, when I write my songs, I like them to be. If I have a very dark sounding song, I add some element, whether it's a high pitched voice or just the color of something bright on top of something dark. I like that idea, and I think that's how life is in general. It gets really dark, and then it opens up a new dimension where it becomes light again,
It's kind of just like the seasons where you grew up.
Yeah, kind of.
And is this where a song like Patience comes from then, where you need that patience? You can't kind of, and it's part of what society has become these days with social media, that you want that instant gratification. But is it kind of you need that patience to go through the dark times and knowing that eventually it will turn to light again?
Yeah, definitely. And that song, I had been working on it quite a bit for a few years, and changing it with little changes every now and then, because this album has lived with me for quite some time. And then maybe after half year, I would look at it again and change some things. And then we got into this, I know we're not supposed to talk about Corona, but we got into the Corona era.
Sure.
And that kind of really affected the song Patience, because all of a sudden everything was super uncertain and everything, the whole world just shut down. And I think that's when I finalized that song. That's where I kind of wrote the last part of it. I added an extra part to this song. And that's funny, because I think this album has very much been affected by both what I've been going through, but also like what was going on around me. So that song is, yes, about patience, to kind of trust that, although you have no idea what's going to happen, eventually it will all fall into place one way or another.
Final question then, with kind of what you said just now in mind, and then saying this album has been with you for 3 years and going back to it. What is it like that now in 2 weeks or so it will be released, to let it go into the world? What is that like?
That will be, I have no idea. That's going to be strange.
Okay.
Very strange. Because when it's been with you for a long time, you're very much in this bubble yourself, and it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of, how people react to it, and I'm very excited to see how my fans react to it. I hope it makes them feel something, whether it's positive or negative is not so important, but as long as it makes them feel something.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, Eivør, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a cool interview.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice.
Pleasure.